Had an eye on the ticket industry for a number of years now, and it does feel like, especially let's talk about the music part of the ticket industry, right? It feels like, maybe this isn't real, that it's incredibly difficult to get access to the shows you want to see.
It is, and it's a complicated market. There's no one solution. You can't pinpoint to just one thing and say that's where it is. But there are a couple problems.
Yeah.
So the market's divided up into the primary and the secondary market.
Okay.
So I think most
what is the primary market of ticketing market and the secondary?
So the primary market is where you buy tickets at face value.
Okay.
All right. And very few of us actually buy tickets at face value, right? I don't remember the last time I bought one. So
right. Right.
So the secondary market are things like StubHub. So that's
Yes.
where you go on there and you buy the ticket for whatever the market value is.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a big delta between face value and market value.
Yep.
But that delta, who does that benefit? Scalpers.
Yes.
Right? It benefits scalpers.
The ultimate intermediary.
Absolutely.
And with the help of blockchain, I would imagine that we are making those folks redundant.
Absolutely. So there's a place in the market for reselling tickets, and we don't want to restrict that to the point that you can't resell your tickets. But what we do think is that artists should be able to take a cut or have some type of control in how their tickets are used. So let's say Pearl Jam in the 1990s went to battle and they wanted to have cheap tickets.
Right, so they protested, what was it, Ticketmaster, Live Nation?
Yeah, there were some companies back there, they protested and said, we want tickets to be inexpensive. We want to be accessible to our fan. And they couldn't do that.
Right.
So with blockchain technology, what we can do is we can put a limit on the price of that ticket. So let's say the ticket is $25. Mm-hmm. We can limit that to $50. Or we can say there's no limit at all, just as long as the artist gets a small percentage of that fee. So now we've taken the revenue model and we've taken it from the backs of true fans who really just want to go to a show.
Right.
And we've put it onto the backs of scalpers who are already making a profit anyways.
How are you handling fees? Because when you buy the tickets, there's all sorts of fees.
Yeah, so you can't eliminate fees. There's a cost of doing business.
Yeah.
And in the primary market, those fees can be distributed between the artist, the venues, and the ticketing company. And in the secondary market, that's where the fees get really, really out of hand. So you go to the secondary market, and you can pay 20% for a fee. And then the seller pays 20% for a fee. It's a lot of money. Mm-hmm. So the secondary market, those fees cover the insurance that if I sold a ticket to you,
yep.
and to you, and to you, and to you, when you went to the venue, if you were the first one there, you win.
Yes.
Everybody else, well, you can get a refund, but we can't refund you from that lack of experience. All right?
What's your take on the perishable inventory that so many sort of mid-market or smaller I almost want to call them mom and pop promoters are struggling to sell, right? Because I think one of the secrets of the ticketing industry, as I recall, is that perishable inventory is a major force to consider.
It is.
When you're trying to sell tickets leading up to the showtime.
So if you have perishable inventory, just like anything, you want to be able to market it to somebody, right? Mm-hmm. So the problem with the ticketing industry, I know who bought the first ticket.
Right.
That's it. I don't know who that ticket was then transferred to, sold to, lost, whatever. So if I'm a marketer, I'm going to market to the first guy who bought the ticket. I don't know anything else. So last year in the ticketing industry, 600 million tickets were sold in the primary market. About 200 million were sold in the secondary market that we know of.
Yeah.
So that's 200 million people, at least, that we have no idea who they are.
And when we don't know, when we know of is because those are the ones that are they're not falling into the hands of scalpers, at least as you see them?
Yeah, so they could be sold on Craigslist and we have no way to track them. We're even sold on the StubHubs and the other legitimate ticketing companies. But as a venue and an artist, I don't know who's coming to the show. Sure. So I may still market to Jane because Jane bought the ticket, but Bob's coming and Bob doesn't like the same thing that Jane has.
Right.
So going back to your question, if I have a perishable inventory, I might be spending wasted resources on targeting the wrong people that need to come to my show.
Got it. Going to our first question, Larry Celebra asks, what would a blockchain for music really mean? He's obviously talking about tickets, but I like that question also. Thank you, Larry.
Yes, there's some companies out there that are looking at trying to institutionalize maybe micropayments and royalties with blockchain, so that if an independent artist sells a song on blockchain, and every time that song is played or distributed, he gets a very small micropayment going back to him. So there are companies that are out there that are doing that, but whether it's the ticketing industry, the music industry, entertainment industry, you have entrenched incumbents that are benefiting from the status quo. So you either have to disrupt the market or provide an alternative source of revenue where everybody is still happy.
Did you? What were you doing before you worked on this? Because I think this is one of those things where it's such an overwhelming. I mean, Don't the two largest ticket sellers in the United States, at least now, sort of work together? Am I incorrect about that? The largest promoter and largest ticket broker?
Yeah, so there are a lot of partnerships across the country.
Right, so it's a series of incumbents that are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So what did you do before this, and what kind of gave you the authority to say, I'm going to take this on?
Okay, so I was working for the government. We were putting together a blockchain project to actually secure the digital thread for 3D print files.
Oh, wow.
So think additive manufacturing. If you want to 3D print a cup like this, I'm going to have the file. How do I make sure that file, when I distribute it from an original equipment manufacturer down to the ultimate printer, that's the file that I wanted.
Right.
So we looked at that, and I had the aha moment last year going to a concert with my wife. We searched for a ticket. I found the same seat on 3 different websites for 3 different prices. And I'm like, how do I know that when I buy that seat, somebody else isn't buying the same seat at the same time on the other website?
Right.
So I thought, this is exactly the double spend problem that Bitcoin was created for. So can we apply the solution set for the digital thread with another digital thread?
Right.
Tickets.
I love it. For those of you just tuning in, this is 72 Hours of Blockchain. Please remember to like us down below. And of course, more questions. I am not allowed to leave this place until I'm not allowed to be brought water. Wink, wink, they just did. Until we answer all of your pressing blockchain questions, because this is meant to be participative, right? This is about you. Raj R. Hey, Raj, this is a great question. Asks, what's the future of blockchain in a mobile world? Given your experience in 3D printing and now in ticketing, and knowing that we live on a device that carries all the power of a supercomputer in our pocket, I feel like you're apt to answer this question.
Absolutely. Thank you, Raj. That's a great question. So when we looked at this, we thought, how do we identify the user who's going to own this ticket?
Yes.
The first thing we said was we can't put personal information on the blockchain. It's immutable, it's permanent, and there's certain right to be forgotten laws that we have to take into consideration if we want to look at the international landscape. So we said, how else can we identify somebody? So where's your phone at? Is it close by?
It is, and it's off because the fans, they get unruly.
Okay.
I don't know.
Exactly.
But yes, would you like me to turn my phone?
No. So everybody has a phone, right? I mean, you don't leave home without
Ironically,
your phone.
I've never used a computer. I didn't know what the internet was, but I totally have a smartphone.
Exactly. So we all have our phone.
Real character.
So back to the question, how do we enable this mobile society with blockchain? Well, we're using basically unique identifiers on the phone to be able to associate those with the tickets.
Right.
Because we know that the consumer is not leaving home with their phone.
And that's a way of sort of accruing identity.
Accruing
user after user.
Exactly. Accruing an identity that if that so-called identity were lost or escaped, it's not going to compromise the true identity of the individual. It's not going to compromise privacy. And it's something that just doesn't have any value outside of our ecosystem.
Are you based in North America right now exclusively, or are you?
No, we're based in North America right now, and we're a startup company. So we've been around for about a year. We've been coding and developing for only a few months. We have a prototype that we're testing out right now, and we're going to continue testing in a beta phase over the summer with the goal of releasing a product by the end of the year.
And what is your relationship right now with IBM? What are you looking to get out of this experience? Think, how has that been going?
Think has been phenomenal. So, if you walk around the floor, we're kind of a fun company. We're not fintech, and we're not.
Fintech is very fun. Fintech is very fun. Enterprise is very fun.
But guess what? We all go to concerts. And we all go to shows.
There's a universality to what you're doing that certainly
exactly.
Has to be acknowledged,
and you can understand it really quickly because if you bought a ticket, you understand what the problem is. So, so getting how to think, just the contacts and the relationships that IBM has. So, back in the summer, we were looking at which platform do we develop this on? And we had a couple choices. We can go the common route and do smart contracting on Ethereum, all right? Or we could do something like Hyperledger. We didn't want to be a cryptocurrency company.
No.
All right, we wanted to be a ticketing company that just happened to use blockchain as one component of the stack of software to make the experience better. Right. We were also concerned with the transactional speed of what Ethereum could provide. 50 to maybe 100 transactions a second versus Hyperledger, benchmark at 4,000 and only going to get better. So those were key considerations that we wanted to make sure that the fan experience did not degrade with blockchain. And in fact, we don't even want the fan to know they're using blockchain.
Right, and that's what we've been hearing time and time again, right, is that that there's blockchain adoption when you're not thinking, this is such an exciting blockchain application.
Right.
You're just having an interaction with the product.
Right, and we get to ask this, so what would you do if you were starting over, how would you describe this technology? And it's not really a blockchain solution, it's a people and processes solution. We just happen to bring in blockchain as one of those solution sets to solve this problem.
Right, and I love that you're not a cryptocurrency company, you're not even a company focused on tokenization of everything. You are a blockchain-enabled ticketing business.
Yeah.
What's the BD cycle look like for you? How are you interacting with those who actually sell tickets in the first place, and have you met any resistance?
So there's certainly resistance in this marketplace because, like we said, they're entrenched players.
Of course, and they have a lot to lose.
They do. They have a lot to lose, but they also have a lot to gain. So if we can figure out the provenance of a ticket from the point that it was issued, every actor in between until finally that ticket goes through the door, now I know who to target, now I know who to advertise for, and that's very powerful for the fan. It's very powerful for the venue and the advertisers.
That is very cool. You've made auditable a very complicated process also up until that point.
Right. So our personal strategy for the company is we want to take this and demonstrate digitally end to end in the primary and the secondary market on a True Tickets platform that we can put tickets. We can put them there. We can show the provenance. We can show that there's a value stream to our clients, and our clients would be venues and artists. Our users would be the fan base. Demonstrate that capability and then expand out with partnerships so that when you buy a ticket, you might buy a ticket at a StubHub or a Ticketfly, but it's on a True Ticket platform. And we can really show traceability, auditability in an entire environment where everybody wins.
That's amazing. I want to throw back, let's take a step back, and we're going to talk again about the specifics of your business, but Tricky Troll asks, thank you, Tricky Troll. How would you explain Bitcoin and blockchain to a newcomer? Let's go back to you're focused on 3D printing. You're still living in the seasonal Northeast or East Coast, I'll say. I don't know if it was the Northeast, and figuring out what's exciting about this new technology. How are you able to explain not only to yourself but to others what are the key differentiators? How is this exciting and not sort of just so crazy?
Yeah, so I can sit down and I can talk to you about a hashing function, or that we group together blocks of transactions that are
sure. And are you technical by background? Is that your background?
I have some technical background, but my focus has been on the overall strategy of the business.
Okay.
And we can talk about those details, but when I give talks, I like to put it in layman's terms.
Please.
So what is,
I am a layman.
That's good. That's good. Me too, as well. So think about a blockchain like a sweater. All right.
Okay.
So your grandmother is knitting a sweater, and she has a ball of yarn, and she just starts knitting. All right. So she continuously knits, and she builds basically this sweater. If I want to go back and change a portion of that sweater, I can't just go back and change it because it's tied to the entire string in that sweater. So I would have to go back and change all of it. All right. Now that's a simple version. Of course, we'd probably distribute that sweater, and you have maybe 50 grandmothers, and they're all knitting sweaters, and you want to change that one aspect, you have to change all of the grandmothers. But nonetheless, it captures the idea that it's permanent and it's immutable.
Asterisk asks, what are people currently working on at the moment in blockchain to help pay artists fairly? Now, this is such a big question. I'd like to take a few minutes on this because this is larger in some ways than just the ticketing business, but you've started with this pain point. So can you speak to me what you've learned about how artists are paid through your ticketing angle, and then maybe speak to the broader problem?
Yeah, so there's not one way artists are paid.
Right, particularly when now everyone can distribute their music or their video content anywhere.
Right. So, Napster, 1990s disrupted the way we listen to music, and finally the record labels figured out that we should sell music online. And now we figured out that we don't want to download music, we want to listen to it and stream it.
Right.
All right. But nonetheless, artists are still paid primarily by concert tours. Okay, so the ability to tour around the country, sell tickets, and sell merchandise.
Was that always true, though? In the 1990s, as I recall, it was sort of the era of the CD. It had gone from the record to the cassette to the CD, and the CD was how people were making more, at least the biggest artists making more money than tours. Yeah, I think CDs and tours have always been primarily there, but people aren't buying CDs anymore. So that's really, I think, what happened in the last 15 years, right? It went from download, so the ownership of music mattered to I can stream, to streaming is great and all, but I'm only making X cent compared to what the record company is making, so I can make it on the road. And really what artists use streaming for, and streaming and for downloading music, let's say through iTunes, is getting the awareness of their song out there. So just like there's a couple of metrics in concert events, you want to sell out your show immediately because that creates a buzz and a hype, right? Hey, Metallica sold out within 2 minutes. Okay, now I want Metallica. It must be something really exciting. If you didn't know what Metallica was already. Same thing with downloading music. It was the way I got the Metallica tickets that was so exciting to me. But this Metallica stuff is great.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to meet that fan.
So when it comes to artists and it comes to how they're compensated, every artist and every environment is completely different. But with blockchain, you can bespoke those types of rules, and you can tailor it to their particular audience. Maybe there's some artists that want to distribute their music directly without going through the larger labels. Maybe there's some artists that don't mind going through the larger labels because it gives them access.
Sure, I think of someone like Chance the Rapper, right, who has become about as successful as it comes and who licenses himself in his music, but who doesn't actually have a major record deal.
Yep, and he's a great example of a potential artist that we could go to and say, I know you don't like working with record labels. I know you don't like working with, other ticketing companies. Would you consider working with, an independent, company like TrueTix? Yeah. Absolutely, because we can give you the visibility of where your tickets are actually going and give you control if you don't want the scalpers to resell them in the secondary market.
How big is your team right now?
Right now, so we have 3 co-founders. We have a business development lead, we have a UX UI lead, and then we have a great partnership with a company called Chateau Software. They're based out of Connecticut. Mm-hmm. So that team is probably about 6 to 8 developers, and we pretty much work cohesively together on moving this forward down the development roadmap and then pushing it to market.
That's great. I mean, where I get excited about this, though, is more and more businesses should be thinking the way you guys are thinking, taking on these big incumbents. However, how many of you have experience in the ticketing business or the music industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So very few of us actually have direct experience in the ticketing industry. So what we did was we recognized very early where our strengths were and where our weaknesses are. And if you can apply a process in one industry, can you apply that same process to architecture in another industry? You can do it, but you just need to make sure you have the right advisors. So we have the strategic advisors and the contacts that are making sure we stay on path and stay on course, and we don't deviate from where we need to go. We've brought in former executives of the companies that we're interested in working relationships with, and that's where we try and build that experience. But if we would have sat back and said we don't know anybody and just didn't, then you're going to be sitting on the sidelines.
Of course. Is that what sparked the move to San Diego? Is it an opportunity to be closer to the sort of hub of music action?
We're kind of virtual in a way. We have folks in Boston, D.C., Tennessee, and Southern California. We have advisors in New York and at MIT. So we have people all over. And right now we can be very agile as we're developing. We're traveling around the country talking about TrueTickets and talking about what we can do.
Right. So you guys have decentralized yourselves brilliantly.
We are decentralized.
You are decentralized. Anna Plastic, this is a great question, Anna. Thank you. And again, guys, more questions, more comments, more thoughts, feedback. We welcome it all. Anna asks. She's a music producer, and she's looking for a blockchain music licensing service similar to Soundstripe and MusicBed.
Okay.
Any insight into that?
I don't know either one of those.
But any music licensing services on the blockchain you might be familiar with?
I know there's a company called Ujo Music that's working on Ethereum and through Consensus. There's another one, I believe, Mycelium, that's Ethereum as well. I may have gotten the name wrong, but those are the only 2 that I know of that are doing in that space.
Got it. And 808, great question. Is there a blockchain solution that allows one to register their music production?
I haven't seen anything yet on that yet. Again, maybe those 2 that I just mentioned. But the thing is, we're very new in this technology. I mean, even the prime players in our economy, the Walmarts, the Maersks, all of these industries are looking to determine how they can create a use case and monetize it and give a value back to all of the different participants inside that consortium. So I think we're all along this ride together. It's just a matter of, do we have 6 zeros behind our, cash flow, or do we have, 16 zeros?
Right. We were talking to guest after guest about the idea that blockchain is a team sport. Can you speak to that idea?
Yeah, I mean, just the very nature of blockchain in itself, it's a distributed ledger, so you can't distribute a ledger amongst yourself.
Yes.
So there are industries out there in the ticketing world that could do things similar to what we're talking about, but it's very centralized. And once you have centralization, then you start introducing distrust. And I think in this society, we're always worried about who's looking in on us and what are they going to do with that information.
Right, and as you're spending more and more time online and putting your information in more and more places, right, you're starting to worry about your identity. And how much do these folks with whom I am shopping, that I'm buying from, know about me as becoming an issue?
Right. Identity is paramount because I've only got one identity.
One of me,
yeah. So I'm concerned even when I open up my iPhone and I use my thumb or my index finger for, biometrics, what if those are stolen? Right. And somebody uses them. I mean, I've got 8 more to go through, and maybe I start using toes. So
they'll get there. They'll get there.
Exactly. So identity on the blockchain is the same thing. I may put something on there. It may not be accurate. How do I get that removed? I mean, think about your credit report. Just removing something incorrect from a credit report. Now imagine your credit report's permanent.
So, coming from government essentially, and moving into this industry, where do you see other dream use cases for blockchain outside of what you're looking at, right? And then I think the other question I'd like to get answered while we have you is, how did you decide to move into this part of the music business first? Because you're right, this is where artists are making tons of money on tour, but now coming from the music business, were you looking at it as the most commercial opportunity or as the one that satisfied consumer interest the fastest?
So let me answer the second one first, because that's more exciting. Sure. So I think we're all a fan. We're all a fan of music. You know, you can go to a ticket, whether it's a movie theater, whether it's a festival, a concert, you name it, a sporting event. We all are consumers of tickets.
You're buying tickets to entertainment.
Right. So, yeah, I'm not an expert in the industry from the business side, but I'm certainly an expert in buying tickets because we do that a lot and we go to shows. So you know what the consumer wants, and at least we think we know what the consumer wants. I know what I want. I want an experience to be enjoyable. I want to find access to the ticket at a price that's fair and reasonable, and I know that there are people that are exploiting the status quo.
Yes.
So can we apply a system using blockchain advantages to benefit the artists, let them know who the true fan is, and I don't want to take necessarily business away from scalpers.
Yeah.
They serve a legitimate process.
Right.
But I think we should return some control back to the artists because they're creating the content that we're enjoying. Right. Shouldn't they benefit from their content creation?
Do you see an opportunity where we're creating a sort of two-sided marketplace, right, where the artists are able to promote their own tickets? I mean, what does the future kind of look like for you in that way?
I think that the future is wide open. I think that you're going to have artists, like you said, Chance the Rapper, who wants to go out there and do it on his own. And he's going to find that there are some unique advantages to doing things on his own. He can be independent. He can make some of those decisions. But there will also be some disadvantages in not having the supporters, supporting companies that can help him get into other markets.
Sure. Would you ever, sorry, continue.
No, that's right. So, I think that, whether you're an artist, a producer, whether you're somebody trying to get into the supply chain that has nothing to do with tickets, it's really, in this day of age, anything is possible because we're all connected.
Yep. Would you ever do something like offer sort of an advance, right? Like, that's how so many of the record labels, especially in the middle of the 20th century, kind of gained popularity, prominence, and a stronghold over the lives of artists.
Right.
Do you see you having to play that game to stay competitive?
So I know that in this industry, there are companies that approach the venues and they say, we'll pay you in advance to hold a show at that venue, and we'll lock you into an exclusive agreement. And there are different revenue models that are going to be very difficult to compete with.
Right.
So I can't go to a venue and say, give up this money, but don't worry, you'll be okay because fans will be happier.
Right.
we still live in a market economy that drives capitalism.
Yeah, that's not. I don't think that fans are going to be happier as actually thinking anyone's going to want to be like, oh, that's it.
I love it. I'm going to go for it.
Yeah.
So what you have to do is give them an alternative source of revenue. We think in this way it could be marketing. So we're accustomed to giving up a certain portion of our identity, not all of it, but a certain portion of our identity
in exchange for a definitive benefit.
Exactly. So maybe it's a bad example right now in light of the news, but Facebook, isn't necessarily a social media company. It's a data company.
Yes.
We just figured that out this week, right? 50 million people did. And
no comment.
No comment.
Yeah.
And Google's the same way. It's not necessarily a search company as it is a data-driven company.
Right.
So if you can apply responsible data handling and use that as a source of revenue, I think that we can replace and disrupt the current status quo.
For so many of our exciting developers and founders and folks out there looking to partner with IBM, would you mind walking us through sort of how you managed to get into the Hyperledger family and what you were able to actually accomplish by virtue of starting as a founder on the outside and then moving here to
so that
really work with everybody on the inside?
So that goes back to how we settled upon Hyperledger to begin with. We started meeting with companies that specialized in Solidity and coding in Ethereum, and we were meeting with companies that had a specialty in coding with Hyperledger. Our weakness was we had a business strategy, but we were weak on the actual blockchain development side. But we wanted to get something started. So we wanted to see who we could partner with. So we ultimately settled on a company called Chateau Software.
You mentioned them, yes.
Exactly, and they're a great partner. We're lockstep and hand in hand in what we're doing with that. And they're an IBM partner as well. So with that relationship, we decided to come to Think. They view this product and this application at Think, and the reception has been overwhelmingly positive. Everybody that's come up to our booth has said great things about what we're doing.
Yep.
And the first question every IBM person asks is, how can we help you? And from a startup that we said, has 6 to 8 employees right now, or people working for it, and IBM, a company so large, saying, how can we help you, has been phenomenal.
And they look to you guys as not just participants in their ecosystem, but as folks who can definitively benefit from the IBM domain expertise has been accrued over so many years.
Absolutely, and IBM has partnerships all over the entire world. So where we're trying to get, maybe we want to have a discussion with Company X. Company X may already be a client of IBM, and IBM can facilitate that and at least open the door for us to prove out our technology or have a conversation. That's something that isn't offered if we're with a different company or a different consortium in the blockchain space.
I want to go back to a question that we dodged earlier, which is what are other exciting use cases that you see and would be immediately excited about? Because you've been involved in disparate opportunities now in the blockchain space.
Yeah, they are. So, I think I go back to supply chain logistics. Yeah. So logistics is certainly one where you have multiple actors and multiple transactors in that space, and the product is going to move along. How do we track the provenance of that product? And I think you can plug and play anything that has a value, and you can plug and play a digital value onto that for the advantages that blockchain can bring to bear.
1 year ago, you guys really kind of kicked into high again,
yes.
You said, right? And you said by the end of this year, you'd like to have a live product.
Yes.
So 1 year from now, it's Think 2019. We've all gathered again, and you're extremely proud of the IBM partnership, and you're extremely excited about what you've built. What are you talking about at that point? What does that look like?
Well, we're talking to you about how your experience was using True Tickets to come into IBM Think, and you're telling us that we loved your product,
I love that.
And we want to keep using you. So that's where we want to go. We want to build this out, test it out, and then come back to IBM and say, look at your technology and look how we can apply it towards you. We're sincere about that, but also we want to make sure that we can deploy the technology so that fans can enjoy going to a concert.
What are some of the next hurdles you guys are all facing over the next year? Are they fundraising, or are they customer acquisition as you go live? What are some of the hurdles that you're facing?
Fundraising is always a problem for any startup, so you're always looking for money. Fortunately, this is a very exciting space, and there is hype around blockchain, so you have to separate the hype from the fact, from the fiction, and separate the folks that don't know about blockchain but just want to get into it. So we're fortunate, and we've been talking with some very well knowledgeable investors, and they're keeping us down the right path.
And we're eager to be involved in this space. We aren't trying to push you too far.
Right, eager to be involved, but they recognize that this is a technology that you can't wait 1 year for, because in 1 year it's going to pass you by. So we're moving at hyperspeed, because a year ago, who was talking about putting anything on the blockchain, besides tokens and cryptocurrency? And now there's a use case for everything. So I think the other challenge is convincing the market that this is the next disruption, just like the internet and just like the computer was.
Before everyone leaves, I like to ask of each guest, what will we solve together? What will we solve together?
I think we solve basically having an enjoyable experience at an entertainment venue, whether that's sports, whether that's a concert. We can solve that problem. We can make it so that you can buy a ticket and you don't have to worry about paying 20% in transaction fees. We can lower that. We can give you an experience back.
That is the True Tickets way. It's so exciting. You know what we're going to have you do? We were actually talking about the Linux Foundation's Hyperledger a little while ago, and I want to do a really exciting plug for something that is near and dear to all of our hearts, the IBM Blockchain Platform Starter Plan. Near and dear to all of us. So with each guest, we look right down into the barrel of this camera, and we give it our all, and we let everybody know how easy it is to obtain the tools to become one of these guys.
Absolutely.
All right? So on the count of three, we're going to read this together, and we're going to get everybody excited out there. All you folks out there in online viewership land. Ready? And a 1, and a 2, and a 3. With the IBM Blockchain Platform Starter Plan, currently free while in beta, you get access to development tools, tutorials, and a development environment to help you build your business network using the Linux Foundation's Hyperledger Composer toolset. Learn more at ibm.com/blockchain. Stephen, it was an absolute pleasure.
Awesome.
Thanks so much for being here.